Good evening. I would like to take the opportunity to introduce you a little bit of the music of Pierre Boulez and this piece he wrote when he was very young, 18 years old. The idea of this program was to show two faces, two styles of the music of Debussy. Where he comes from, with Chopin, and where his music leads to, in the case of the young Pierre Boulez and many others. Almost all the composers I've met, I had the chance to meet, said they were very influenced by Debussy. And especially the music he wrote at the end of his life, like the Etudes. Now, what is also interesting is that the Etudes, the 12 Etudes, you are going to hear 6 of them tonight, are dedicated to Chopin. Debussy always loved very much the music of Chopin. And actually, his first teacher was a Chopin pupil. And probably for financial reason also, he published a complete edition of the Chopin piano music with pedaling and fingerings. Nevertheless, as I was trying to demonstrate in the first half, their sound world and their approach to the keyboard, the way they treat the keyboard, are extremely familiar, extremely similar. Now, also, in the etudes, for example, that you are going to hear, I counted up to 8 different marking for how to approach the key. You have staccato, you have portamento, you have a little accent, you have a stronger accent, and all the combinations, staccato and poco marcato, staccato and accent, accent and strong accent. It's 8, up to 8. So what Debussy is trying to tell us, I guess, is that each sign represents a way to approach the key and to press it down. Another dimension that Debussy added at the end of his life, which was probably one of the most fascinating one for the young composers like Pierre Boulez, was the spatialization. I must admit that this hall might be a little too big to appreciate all the finesse of Debussy music, which was almost like the one of Chopin, to be shared between 4 eyes in a salon, you know, and to have the public, the audience, right in the piano so they could be immersed by the sound. I give you one example of this spatialization that you are going to hear in the etudes for the fourth, for example, and some other etudes in the second book, which he doesn't give us only an indication of dynamic, but also that it should come from far away. And the one very specific example I have in mind, where the same chord has to be played 3 times. 3 times the dynamic is actually the same, two pianissimos, but he says from far away, even further, even further. So for him, the sound has to come from somewhere, which I found very interesting. Now, enough of the Debussy etudes. Let me give you a little hint or guide of this 12 notation. I had the great chance to work with Pierre Boulez as a conductor, but also as a composer, and play the piece, and also his first sonata for him, this piece. Now, as I said, it's written when this composer was 19 years old, Same year as Bartók Third Concerto, and same year as Strauss' last 4 leaders. Interesting. So this language, this music is 80 years old already. In 20 years, it will be 1 century years old. And still we hear it with sometimes of little bit of shock. Shock must remain, but also we must see what is at stake in this music. That's the reason of me talking to you tonight. 12 notations, 12 short pieces, ultra short pieces, some of them just a couple of dozens of seconds. The entire cycle is less than 10 minutes. Each developed a very simple musical idea. And actually, as Pierre Boulez showed me the piece first, he said, but that's a game. It's just a game. It's a play. What can I do with 12 bars with one idea? Now, 12 is an interesting number. It can be twice 6. It can be 3 times 4, 4 times 3, and all the variations. And each of the notation has a kind of logic. For example, the first one starts like this. And ends with the same figure reversed. The second one is super violent with some glissandos, and it establishes a kind of vehement gesture. The third one, I found also a little homage to Albenberg in this one. And the first 4 bars and the last 4 bars are actually a palindrome. A palindrome is something you can read in both directions, and it's the same. You can have it in language. I'm not sure if it applies to Cantonese and Mandarin and Chinese and Japanese and Korean. I'm not sure you have that. I would be interested to know. But anyway, we have a few in France, and in Hungarian, they have a lot of palindromes. Anyway, Johann Sebastian Bach, was having fun in writing music that could be read from both directions. And so this is the case here of the 4 first bars and the 4 last. You cannot really grab it. It's a pure intellectual thing. Nevertheless, I was trying to, when I discovered that this is a palindrome, to see how correct it is, and I found a mistake. So very humbly, on the 12th of June 2002, the date is here, I asked, when I played the piece for Maestro Boulez, I said, look, I think there is a rhythmical mistake there. So he was intrigued, looked, and said, oh, you're right, Jean-Efflam. So very proudly, I wrote in my score, authorized by Pierre Boulez. Now, the number 4 is 12 times the same figure. And it has to be very rhythmic. You can have fun trying to count them. There are 12 of them. The right hand is doing something a little bit like the birds of Messiaen. Number 5 is split into 2 phrases, and both phrases end with a contrasting gesture. For the first one, for the second one. Number 6 needs a little bit of explanation. It's probably the music I know of where the time to learn it and to master it is about a ratio, and the time to play it, the performance is itself as I said, a couple of maybe 20 seconds. You need 2,000 hours of music to learn that. I'm not joking. Because this is actually a canon. Canon. You know what a canon, when the voice is, when it's the same melody, but each voice starts a little later than the first. Now, if I play to you parallel these two voices, it sounds like this. And so on and so on. Now, I play in canon with two notes different. Do you hear? Okay, one more, parallel. Canon. Okay? Now, the same, but very fast. And so on. Number 7 is very interesting because it's based on two intervals, a fifth and a quint. Sorry, quart. A fifth and a fourth. The piece has to be played hieratic. Hieratic, I've never seen it anywhere in any music. I had to look at the dictionary. And it refers to something noble and static, not moving. A little bit it's used to describe the posture of the Egyptian pharaoh. Number 8 is based on two notes, a B flat and an E flat. But each note is part of a group of 3. Anyway, Boulez, the young Boulez, tried to have these two notes in all possible configuration. It's changing all the time. And under it, you have some chords which are increasing in intensity, and the piece ends with very violent. So it starts from almost nothing, increase, and finishing very fast. Number 9 is my favorite. I tell you, I was playing in London a recital of the 3 last Beethoven sonatas when Pierre Boulez died. And the news, of course, was a great shock. And it's very difficult to play any encore when you have a recital of the 3 last Beethoven sonatas, right? And then I wanted to pay homage to this great man, and I chose to play the number 9. And now, since that day, I always refer to this. This one is based on the number 3. And you have some very dark chords in the bottom register. Above that, you have a melody. The two together. And as a contrasting element of this floating mood and dark mood, genius idea, you have 3 notes played that should be like a bass drum. I'm amazed of the atmosphere so little material can create. And these 3 beats that you will hear 1, 2, 3, 4 times in the piece are for me like either a cosmic pulse or a funeral march or a prayer, but something really very mystical to me. And even after Opus 111 of Beethoven, it stands out. So chapeau for the young Pierre Boulez. And the 3 last, number 10 is mécanique, so dry, very sec, very dry, and like a little machine. Number 11 is a complete palindrome. Once again, I checked. And this time, I didn't find a rhythmical mistake, but a note mistake. So, very proudly, I said to the maestro, it should be, I think, if according to the text, B flat and A flat, and not A flat and B flat, as you wrote. I don't know if I was a little arrogant in the way I said it, or if Mr. Boulez was a little annoyed that I could pinpoint 2 mistakes. And he looked at me and said, no, it should be that way. So unfortunately, I have to write non-authorized by Pierre Boulez this time. And the finale, the last one, is made of very imposant chords, very dissonant, and it ends with a big splash of the entire orchestra. Ah, interesting, I name orchestra. It's also a piece that the young Pierre Boulez wrote, but at the end of his life, he orchestrated some of the notation and developed them in a piece of more substantial than just 20 seconds, and developed the ideas of each in pieces like 5 or 6 or 7 minutes. And this one, at the end, it's an enormous tam-tam gong, and the piece resonance in finish in a big explosion. Thank you very much.